Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is the Member Lounge podcast, and I'm your host, Farhad Khan. I'm the CEO of Member Lounge. In this podcast, we learn how to grow your association membership. And if you don't know about us, Member Lounge is a member portal platform that helps you double your member engagement and automates your membership marketing. Today, we're excited to have two amazing guests with us today. And Bruce is actually joining us as a co-host for the very first time. And this is a live recording of our episode. So this is also being live streamed on LinkedIn. So if you're joining us on LinkedIn, welcome. And if you're joining us on Zoom here, welcome here as well. We got some amazing questions from the audience before the event already. So if you have any more questions, please submit them on Zoom chat as well. But we will take your questions that you submitted before too. With that, we will get started right away. So first of all, I want to introduce our new co-host, Bruce. Thank you so much for joining us as our co-host for the podcast. Over to you.
Thanks, Farhad. Glad to be here. I am Bruce Rosenthal. I've worked on corporate sponsorship programs for many years, for 8 years as VP of Corporate Partnerships for a large national association, and the last 8 years or so as a consultant, advisor, educator, helping organizations increase sponsorship revenue and member value. So what I often hear from corporate sponsors is they're looking for year long. They're not looking for just the annual conference. So when Farhad called and said, let's do this session with Bob and let's talk about taking both for member engagement and for sponsor engagement and all those good reasons, let's take engagement beyond those excellent 3 days of the conference. Because as I hear from a lot of members and sponsors, there's 365 days in the year. So let's take all those good things that we put together in education and networking and expand that to year round. So Bob?
Happy to be here, guys. I think this started when Farhad and I were talking about community platforms and event apps and year-round engagement, and I'm glad to be here to share this. I actually did this similar topic. This is what I mentioned to Farhad. I guess I kind of helped with coming up with this topic, and really excited to also meet Bruce for the first time virtually live, and hear your sort of thoughts and what you have been hearing from sort of the association community specifically around this topic. My background is in event software. So for those of you that don't know EventMobi, we've been around for over 15 years. We generally serve mid-sized conferences that are managed what we call small teams, which is basically almost all associations. And our platform does everything from registration to batch printing to event app, and generally for associations used for their annual conference. And we always felt like this concept of continuing this conversation post-event was always missing. And we've been doing a lot of research, we've been building a lot of products, talking to a lot of customers, and it's still a big challenge, which I'm sure we're going to talk about today. So very excited for the topic.
Wonderful. So, Bob, I think I'll jump right in, right? So you have been managing a lot of conferences through your conference app for sure. Can you tell us what are some key activities that drive the most engagement during the conference? And we know some best practices, but what are some deep items that you have found?
Honestly, I think the best things that drive engagement is actually not even related to technology. I mean, this comes from me as someone that has been selling event apps to over 20,000 conferences. And this is from my personal experience. I think the best engagement activities are actually real activities, like those small conferences that you create an outdoor activity for people to go at. They do a workshop. That's really what builds connection and elevates engagement. To get there, there's different levels how we engage with community. At the beginning, we just observe. Then we kind of, ask a question. Then we answer a question. Then we participate to create content, and all that stuff kind of takes different sort of levels of engagement for people to be ready. But your question essentially around what are the key points that drive engagement? I think part of that is for attendees to just know what's out there. What are the options? Some people want to interact in different ways. Some people are more comfortable. For example, if you have a Q&A with your app, they're more comfortable just anonymously putting their questions in there. Some people like to lead a conversation in a campfire, right? So creating different options for different profiles of your attendees. I think it's keys. And the other thing that comes back is, we always talk about conferences having this serendipitous sort of like we'll meet random people in the hallway, and I'm like, that's great. But in reality, why not create focus area for networking? Why not create an on-conference experience so that people can, sort of fizzle up what they're interested in, and 4 or 5 people get together to chat about that. People at the conference, and majority of conferences actually, I would say they have more knowledge than most speakers. There is a lot of knowledge at these conferences. And the question is, how do we harness that and kind of bring the expert together in smaller groups in sort of informal ways to connect? I think that sort of engagement and connection building kind of happens in those types of sort of crowdsource. So I went through different sort of items here, but I think part of it is networking opportunity, part of it is activities, and the rest of it is the magic of event planning and being able to execute these experiences.
Now,
So,
Bob's example reminds me, I'd worked for a large national association. At our convention, we didn't want that networking to be completely random. So we identified the 12 or so top topics that members were interested in and set up 12 lounges so that folks could go somewhat at random. But if you want to learn about marketing, or if you're new to practice, or if you wanted to talk about leadership issues, you could go to that lounge at your convenience and participate in the conversation. And to increase the value for the members as well as sponsors, we had a sponsor for each of the lounges. And those sponsors were aligned with what that topic was. So if it was a lounge around marketing, then it was a marketing agency that sponsored that lounge, and they could have one of their execs in the lounge, not to sell, but to help drive the discussion and answer questions, or to talk about how they were helping other member organizations with marketing strategies. So it was a real win-win, because the members got the value, not in a random way, but as Bob said, in a much more focused way with those topic lounges. And the sponsors got huge value because they got that face time with these small groups of members.
so are you both saying good food doesn't matter?
Right.
I do actually have to say, one of the best things I've seen, this was at a PCMA conference many years ago, and they set up the lunch in a way that, and they give you like tiny plates that you have to like keep going back to the buffet to kind of grab something and then go back to a different table. Honestly, I think that was one of the best networking, because it kind of forced me to kind of keep changing my table because of food. So I mean, food could matter if you design it well.
That's right. And I'll actually add to the topic of like curated connections where you set up like lounges or tables per topic. So I was in one conference and we were sponsored there. And unfortunately, like the organizers did try to do a great job in creating those curated like topic-based tables. So each sponsor had a table and we would kind of like come and sit at the table, and then like guests would like come and talk to us. And what ended up happening is that in order to like find the right table, you have to go to an app and then do this and do that to find which table people are on, and then come to the room. No one could find out how to find the right table for them. All they needed is just a label on the table, and that's it. And nothing else was needed, right? But they didn't do that. They actually made us go through an app, and that was a nightmare. So then what ended up happening is that like I was sitting at the table as a sponsor, and then I was the people who came to my table were random. They didn't know who I was. They didn't know what the topic was. But then we still met some good people though, by chance, purely by chance. So it worked to some extent.
Yeah, I wonder if there are ways to take that concept, with our theme today of year round. So I wonder, Farhad, if you found the right people at your table, if there would be a way to say, well, could the association convene this discussion group virtually every quarter? And you can invite people to participate. And you could say, it was great to see you at the conference 3 months ago. We're going to do this again in 3 months, and to make it a year-long experience to provide value for you as a sponsor as well as members.
I'll let Bob probably take that first. Yeah.
I think that's brilliant. I mean, going back into the kind of the core of the conversation today is year-round engagement. And what I have talked with my team and our customers the past couple of years is the conference itself is, you can get the best level of intent of what people care about. When I choose to go to a breakout room and I choose a particular topic, or I go in a networking session about a particular topic, that means I am very interested in that topic. So why not use a signal to actually encourage sort of webinars or specific online networking activities post-conference, because we already know who is interested. So instead of sending a mass email to everybody's, we're gonna run a session about topic XYZ, and you have no idea if they're interested, you can run maybe similar to what Bruce was saying at that conference. You could have group these audiences to 12 different emails, and you send that specific ask to people that actually participated or attended a particular session or topic, and that conversation can continue throughout the year. And that's kind of the beauty. I think I think about it more from an event app platform sort of view, is that everybody's logged in. They already created profiles. They went to that session. They answered some Q&A, and they downloaded the content. So if you're running the webinar again, it's very easy to kind of take that group of attendees for that session and then run a webinar afterwards. If you have a community platform, and you can do that on the community platform, you can do the exact same thing. But it's just a matter of using the data that you get from the interactions and engagement that you have at the conference, and then use that as a way to kind of really create this personalized experience for people about that topic. So that conversation, exactly, Bruce, it's you can continue that conversation throughout the year and get your sponsors involved, because now you know exactly who is interested in that topic, and you can bring the right sponsor for that particular topic.
Right. Well, and I think it satisfies a couple of other similar needs for members and the sponsors, that it puts the members together, kind of birds with a feather. So if it's a large conference, what we sometimes hear from members is, yeah, it was large, but I couldn't find the people that have similar interest to me, or similar background, or similar title. And what I'm finding more and more from sponsors, they would rather talk to the right 50 people than have their signage in front of 5,000 people. So I think that satisfies the needs for the good news for members and sponsors at the same time, by getting people with aligned interests and putting them together. And if it's 20 people that get on a virtual networking or roundtable discussion every quarter for the year, and then bring it all together at the annual meeting, that's great for those 20 people and that sponsor.
Yeah, so to add to that, actually, and Bob, like, if you have any thoughts on this, let us know. So I think we are talking about segmenting our member base around like topics, right? I think and I have since we have a member platform, segmentation is big, top of mind for us all the time now. But we can kind of either segment too little or segment too much. It's very difficult to find the right balance. So from the event app, have you found good ways to kind of find top topics or the right segments?
I think there's some easy. I always think about there's so many ways to do segmentation, and some of them are really fancy, but they're very difficult. But honestly, I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruits, and the low-hanging fruits are not even asking, because a lot of people talk about surveys and asking people a million questions, and I'm like, you don't even need to ask. You can just observe what they do, and that's as good as it gets. And that's actually sometimes even better than a survey. And the easiest one is sessions. So sessions have specific topics. They have specific sort of focus audiences that they attend. And if you have a check-in, for example, for your conference, you can actually know who went to the session, or on the app, if they favorite a particular session on the app, you can export that. And that's a very easy segmentation for a specific topic. Now, you can make it more complicated. You can create a multi-journey. Okay, if they went to this session and they went to that session and they attended this exhibitor, okay, now I can create this super complicated survey. Or if they answered a particular question on the survey, then I can create a segmentation using that. It can even be more focused. I know a lot of sessions now use live polls in the session. So even within a session, you can identify people that are interested in a specific sort of, if they have a specific pain point or need. So there are a lot of ways, I think, to use event app specifically. And again, that goes back into lots of stuff happened during the conference. Engagement, signals, actions that are taken. So how do we use that to create a more personalized experience post event. The easiest way, I think a lot of conference organizers can use is that, especially when you run breakouts, not everybody is able to attend all the breakouts. So why not look at the most popular breakouts in a time slot? So let's say it's like 10 o'clock, you have a bunch of breakouts, 11 o'clock, you have a bunch of breakouts, and it's like 6 sessions. So if it was 6 sessions, let's say 1/6 of your audience went to that breakout, but then you look at the rating of the breakouts and you find out one is better than the other. And you also hear that anecdotally throughout the conference. So post-conference, just ask that speaker to come back and do a webinar and invite everybody that probably missed going to that session, right? So now you're kind of focusing on the best content using the data that you have from the event app. Now it's completely open. You might actually find out that like 3/4 of people went to a particular session. I mean, that's a really good signal to actually go to your broader member base and run a general audience, because not everybody probably went to the conference. Now you have this, now you know exactly what content. So there's a lot of, I think, low-hanging fruit to do, interest or signal-based segmentation from the activities and engagements that attendees have at the conference. That to me is like the low-hanging fruit. Now we can get really fancy, but it depends how much time we have.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great idea, Bob, to really determine what the most popular sessions were and then bring that faculty back to do webinars. Because, yeah, you determined it's the most popular. I think for any association, 20, 30% at most of their members attend. So you got many, many members who don't attend, but they're going to be interested in that topic, the same as the people who are on site.
Yeah, and the speaker, it's an easy lift for the speaker because they already created the content. The slides are there. Just can you please come back and redo whatever you did because it was amazing. And not only that, I think there's lots of Q&A that happens using the app. So you have tons of questions from attendees, and that can actually feed into the conversation that the speaker is going to have. So even people that attended the session might want to go back to talk about the things that everybody had questions about. So lots of way to kind of continue to use the content again from the conference to continue the conversation post event. And I think this not doing it is a huge missed opportunity. In marketing, like we have a marketing team, and like a lot of digital marketers talk about content distribution and content repurposing. And I think we don't really do that really well in the conference industry. This experts come in, they spend 20 hours to create content for a session. 50 people attend that session, and then it never appears again. And I feel like this is like the biggest missed opportunity to not take that content and provide exposure to the sponsor and the speaker that participated to create that content, and then continue to do that live. Post event at webinars, create blog posts, create discussions based on that topic. So lots of easy way. I think we went off topic from your questions about segmentation though, so I'll stop talking.
No, that's great. That's great. Yeah. So Bob, you can't imagine how many events I've gone to where the sessions are not being recorded, right? And then only if we could record the session, then they can be repurposed later on in many different ways, right? So do you have any thoughts on why people are kind of not trying to record the sessions when it's so cheap? It's so easy and so cheap nowadays to record.
I think so. Our core customers are event planners, and I think event planners are type A perfectionists. Like they pay attention to details. And I think in a lot of ways, if they feel like they can't do something perfectly, they just don't do it, right? So if I can't get the AV team to come in to record it, so it's like super high quality video, let's just not record any breakouts. But honestly, what's the best recording device that's so easy is it's this. Like just put a phone with a nice microphone by the speaker and you have the audio. And what's even easier than that post event? All these AI tools you just feed the audio in, you get the transcript, and it can automatically create a summary. So imagine what you could do with just summarizing all these breakouts. Like no one really wants, I mean, let's be honest, how many of us watched an hour recording of a conference session? I'll just let that let me ask that question. How many people watch the full 1 hour record? Like nobody watches it. But what if we could kind of use these AI tools to take the simple audio? Like I think audio is so underutilized at conferences just recording audios with simple like Android or iPhones is like super inexpensive. You can rent a bunch of them for very cheap. Record the audio, feed it into an AI tool, get the transcript, run the transcript through a summary tool, and then put it back on the event app. So anyone that actually missed the content can actually go and be like, oh, I missed these 5 breakouts. I'm just going to go quickly look at this. And a trick that I have here that I learned from our customers is don't release post-event all your content at the same time. I mean, this is really key. It's like in the past, like some event planners have a checklist, especially on the corporate side. Is like, okay, the webinar finishes or the conference finishes, we need to kind of release the post-event because we promised it to the attendees. And I'm like, you promised it, but you don't have to release everything at the same time because no one's going to be able to consume all the content at the same time. You also can't market everything at the same time. You have like limited attention span. So why not like every month release like 2 or 3 sessions? You release the recording and you tease it using the AI summary and which you got from the audio recording. And you can basically put the speaker presentation up for people that really want to go detail. And if there's a lot of interest, the speaker can come back and do a live webinar, for example. But yeah, so I think the reason a lot of event planners don't do it is expensive to record. That's the reality of conference business these days. But I think I don't think anyone's worried about sort of the union coming at you to say you're using an iPhone to record. That used to be the problem, right? If you wanted to bring an outside sort of AV company to record, but I think now it's so easy to do it, and I don't think it interferes with the unions at hotels. So I'm sorry to all the unions at AV companies there, but associations don't have a lot of money. I mean, this is like you got to do with the tools and that can kind of create the best sort of engagement and content that you can use post-event.
So Bob,
Bob, as you explain these different strategies for repurposing content, it occurs to me, I think a lot of associations look at their conference as the goal or the objective. And it's like, oh, or our bylaws say we need to have an annual conference. That's our goal. I think a conference is a tactic. The goal is education, networking, ongoing engagement. The conference is one tactic, one tool in that toolbox. And then we look at all the different ways to repurpose content, bring back faculty, do podcasts, do micro-learning, do transcripts. Those are all the different tactics, including the conference. I think we should always include the conference in that mix. So often when I talk with corporate sponsors and having year-long engagement, we don't eliminate the conference. It's like, oh, well, you're a sponsor and your expertise is in X, and let's make you the signature partner for X, and you can do a webinar in Q1 and a white paper in Q2, and definitely be at the conference in Q3 and a podcast in Q4, and then you will have year-long engagement. The conference is a key part of it, but the conference is not the end goal. And I know that's hard to get our heads around because we invest so much time and so much money, and it's so many members and board members and 90% of the staff on site and all that. But it is one tactic. And especially for in many cases, 70% of the members who don't come to the conference, that's not the end goal. It is one tactic of many ways to engage members throughout the year.
So I have a question, if I may. Maybe this is to both of you. I'm kind of curious to hear your views, as especially you, Farhad, as you're involved in sort of community engagement using sort of Member Lounge. The biggest challenge that Bruce was talking about is it all makes sense. Like we need to do year-end engagement. We got the content, we got the attendees, and actually it makes sense. And I sometimes feel like the main goal of year-end engagement sometimes is not even about the engagement. It's because we can then increase registration next year because we have engaged members. So let's it talks money, right? But what do you think is the biggest challenge that year-round engagement is so difficult for association? I have my own theory, but I want to hear it from you because you're more involved in sort of community building.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess I have multiple thoughts on that, but I'll keep it really short. So first of all, what we have found working with many associations is that the decision to renew your membership doesn't happen at the end of the year when it's time to renew. It happens during the year, right? So if an association is not delivering value during the membership year, we have already lost a member, right? So at the end of the year, it's like a no-brainer for the member to cancel and not renew. That's it, right? So I think like we have to make sure, we have to kind of like shift the paradigm to begin with, that, you know what, the decision to renew the membership happens during the year, not at the end of the year. So I think this gives everyone like a smack in the head that, you know what, no, what we're doing is not right, and there has to be some year-round engagement. That's number one. Number two, I think when you have like an activity or something that has an expiry date, people are excited, the excitement builds up to like reach that goal, that expiry date. There is the conference and we know it'll expire. That's why there's an urgency, right? So year round, there's no urgency, there's no hype built up for anything in general, right? So that's why what we find is that like unless you have that anticipation build up, that like hype, that expiry happening with content or anything else, members are not motivated enough to kind of like get that content or engage well enough. That's number one. Another thing that I find is that association staff often think that like producing content and kind of like engaging members year round is actually a very difficult activity, right? They think, oh, we have to produce tons of content. How many speakers are we gonna get? What are we going to do, right? I think like people don't look at it like from the first principles point of view, right? What do your members want? You know, who can provide the value? Just get the people in a room, maybe a Zoom webinar, and then do a webinar. Right. So I think like the big challenge is that association staffs, they often think that like it's a lot of work to produce content and to create like events and organize things, which nowadays it's really not, right? We have so many tools right now. So I'll give you an example, say on Member Lounge, right? So if you just like post an event on Member Lounge, we automatically create all the email blasts, campaigns, pings to members. Members already know that this is happening. And there are many tools like that. You don't have to use Member Launch. Like any technology that you use will automate a lot of that like marketing promotion activities on like for you on your behalf. So I think people actually have that like mental block that, oh, it's very difficult, but really it's not. Like if you have the right strategy and the recipe, it's like cooking, right? You have the recipe, it's very easy. You don't have the recipe, it's hard, right? So if you have the recipe and if you kind of like work with a content person to help you guide like through the whole process, it's extremely easy, I find. And okay, that's that. And the second thing as well, I think most associations are not using enough tools. Like we try to like cut down expenses on tools and we think, oh, it's like crazy expensive and this and that. We don't have like money or budget or like time for that. But to be honest, like the amount of time some of the AI tools and advanced tools like save you, like the amount of like human resource, like human time it saves you, right? It actually pays back more than what you spend in most tools. So unless you're buying something ridiculously expensive, I think most tools like save you money and save you time and effort. So I think these mental blocks, if you can overcome them, it'll be much easier to engage year round.
Oh, super interesting.
Yeah, I think the only thing I'd add to that, I agree with all that, Farhad. But to answer your question, Bob, I think there's just a huge amount of institutional momentum around the annual conference.
Yeah.
We start selling the exhibit booths for next year on site at the current conference. We send out the call for sessions 11 months before the conference. We've got 4 full-time staff people that work on conference logistics and selling booths. We have 5 people in our education department that go through all those proposals, and the end game is those 3 days. So I think it's getting better, and there are associations that are saying, okay, we are the education department. We're going to have somebody in charge of podcasts or somebody in charge of webinars.
Yeah.
But still, the glory in many cases, and I've seen this in a number of associations, it's when the VP of conferences comes in and says, oh, we've got so-and-so as a keynote speaker, and the staff is like, yay, that's great. And somebody says, oh, we got 2 podcasts lined up, and they're going to be 20 minutes each. And so the glory is often in the big annual conference, and that's where a lot of the money is, and the revenue also. And it's also easy to track the revenue. We see what the expenses are, we see what the registration
Yeah.
fees and the exhibit fees and the sponsor fees coming in, and to say, oh, we've got this series of podcasts and that's been great for member retention. Well, how do we know that? How do we know what the revenue is from those retained members or new members? So I think it's, the focus is often on the conference. So I think it's, that's why I was thinking as you were talking earlier, Bob, if we begin to think of the conference as a tactic of the many tactics that we can use, and whether it's year-long apps or micro learning or podcasts or webinars, I've seen associations be very successful with focus groups. And we sometimes think, well, why would a member want to participate in a focus group, either with the association or with the sponsor? Members often want to be asked what their opinions are. So maybe it's looking to one of the top tier year-long sponsors and saying, what if we, you're interested in, and this can be not salesy, but it can be more product focused. Your company's looking at a new type of product to help members. What if we put together a focus group of members and meet with them 3 times a year, quarterly, virtually, and then bring it all together at the annual conference? So we have year-long engagement. We have members who are engaged year-long saying, "Oh yeah, I'm part of this new product development with the company, and part of these quarterly focus groups." And the company is like, "Well, great! I have year-long engagement with this segment of members." So another win-win.
You said something, Bruce, that I want to reiterate here is I feel like it's this segmentation of work or kind of siloed work that you got events team working on the conference. But in reality, for smaller associations, if they have other events running, the events team has to go to the next event. They don't really have the time to go back and do year-round engagement. It's not part of their day-to-day job. So I feel like this is really an executive board sort of strategy that's like, hey, this is an organization level strategy to do year-round engagement, and we need to delegate this across the team. Like the communications team needs to can help out quite a bit. Even the head of sales can help out quite a bit to bring sponsors in. If you have a social media manager or a community manager, this is really kind of their job. And
Mm.
if you don't have one, if you really want year-round engagement, we got to go hire one. We can't expect the event planners to work on the event year-round and then manage all the webinars and then manage all the the leadership summit that's happening or the quarterly gatherings that are happening. And then, hey, by the way, just can you also repurpose the content for the conference on the community platform? I think that's almost like it's a it's a mission that's destined to fail. It just like that accountability needs to be clearly defined. I feel like that's the biggest challenge because most of our customers are event planners, and when we go to them, the biggest challenge is like, but I just don't have time because I have to manage the next conference. And then the question is, well, who is there to help? And that I think is one of the biggest challenges there for a lot of organizations to create this year-round engagement. But it would be awesome to kind of hear this from the community as well. This is a theory I have, so I mean, the teams themselves know best.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess like Bob, to add to that, I think you touched on something very important, right? So communication teams, marketing teams, they're always looking for good content inspiration, content sources and whatnot, right? And what I always like tell like my clients and even our team, right, that like don't look for content where the content is not there, right? So look for the content like around organic events, activities that are happening naturally. For example, like we are doing this podcast, we're going to have a blog on this podcast right after. We're going to have video clips based on these videos right after, right? So if you just like point the marketing and communications team to like where the activity is happening and tell them to like gather content inspiration from the activity organically, as opposed to trying to create new content. You don't need to create, just
Yeah.
share whatever is happening. Tell your story. Let your team members, let your like members tell the story. Let your partners, sponsors tell the story.
Yeah, and that bottom up strategy is what creates true engagement. It's not the, hey, we have all these webinars and here's a link to all our latest blog posts. It's actually activating the members to create content and to be active, and even your sponsors as experts.
Got it. There's a very good question here from Stu that I want to try and paste here. Let's see if I can paste on chat properly. Stu, do you mind sending it to the whole group? Oh, there you go. Yeah. Do you see it, Bob? Do you want to take this?
All right. So should I read it out? So how do I sell the idea of recycling the recording of a conference workshop or a session, providing that the recording to members later on? So I think Stu's concern is like leadership would like to refute the sort of no one would come to our conference if we offered it later anyways. This is I think has been discussed for the last 20 years as completely debunked. Content, I don't know. Bruce, do you want to take this? I feel like you're maybe I think you're best at kind of take this, and then I can kind of give you my take based on what we hear.
Yeah, I just remember in the early days of video conferences, and this was even long pre-COVID, there were associations that said, "Oh, we don't want to do anything in the way of a video conference because it'll cannibalize our annual meeting." And what I generally heard from associations that wasn't true, that it really ramped up engagement, and that it got, in fact, it even sometimes increased in-person attendance because people would get inspired by what they saw in the virtual world and then come to the in-person conference. But yeah, something I learned, in a couple sessions a year or so ago, do it as a pilot. I mean, you don't necessarily have to go out there and repurpose, dozens of recordings, but do it as a pilot and see if it has any impact and see who's coming to the recordings. Like, are they the same people, or maybe they're different people that were coming to the in-person anyway?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think anyone these days goes to conferences for the content. Content is an excuse, but there is
Mm,
so much content out there that and noise that people are going to conferences because they want original, authentic sort of uh, content from real experts delivered live so they can also engage live. That's really why people are going to conferences. The beauty of being able to reuse that content is twofold. One, for people that were at the conference and they missed the content, or they was so amazing and they wanted to share it with someone, now they have a way to do that. But it also helps attract new members. So the content that gets created at the conference is basically the teaser for your next year conference. And that's what I think a lot of people kind of miss on that opportunity to be able to kind of reuse that content. And the timing of that is really, really, really important. You also don't have to release the whole content post-conference. So there's lots of
mm,
AI tools these days that you feed the video in and you get 3-minute clips out of it. The highlights is like literally within 5 to 6 minutes. What used to take like an entire day for a AV guy to do, you can actually use AI to create these snippets of content and then use it as a way for people to kind of catch up on what they missed, to use it as a teaser for future sort of engagement and programs. So there are different ways to kind of, I think, reuse content in different ways that can slowly, as Bruce was saying, kind of get the board kind of on track with using it. But that's a really good question. But I honestly think it's a missed opportunity if you don't do it, both for existing members to engage them and provide more value, and also to attract new members.
I'll add.
Yeah, I think it's also useful, if not imperative, that associations do a competitive analysis. And if the question was, oh, should we offer that content on marketing or on leadership? What if people go there instead of go to our in person? Are members going to other sessions on marketing and leadership that are offered by other members, by corporate sponsors, by trade press that they could find on LinkedIn Live? So if members are getting the content somewhere else, it's not really a question of, are they going to go to our recording and our association's recording instead of our association's conference? They may be going to somebody else's recording anyway.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
you can
why
also
not
charge
why
for
not
these
why not be the
recordings.
leader and the aggregator and the
Yes.
expert and bring folks into the association's tent? Sorry, Bob, go ahead.
No, I completely agree with you. It's the idea of how you position the association as leader is by kind of pushing out these content on your website, on social media, so that it kind of reinforces that image. So like the conference would be, you don't want to miss that conference because that's where the latest topics and the experts are going to speak because you can see what was published recently. So I think that's a definitely a great point.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I guess as to just like answer your question in a different angle, right? Overall, so every single time you do an activity with your membership, like Bruce was saying, the conference is an activity. It's more like a tactic. It's like a tactic, and the content is the value you're delivering through the tactic, right? So every single time you put out a tactic, it can be like a LinkedIn post, can be a webinar, or anything that you put out. Any single time you put out something, you get a window of attention into your membership. If you have 5,000 members, you have a LinkedIn post, 5,000 members are not seeing it at that point in time. Maybe 10 will see, maybe 50 will see. You post it again, another 50 will see. Post it again, another 50 will see, right? So we have run webinars, the same webinar, I think, like 15 times. If I ran the webinar tomorrow, 100 people will sign up again. I know that these are new people every single time. The people who have seen it, they will know that, oh, I have seen it, so I'm not going to join this one. But another new 100 will come up, right? So that's why I think like in terms of marketing and promoting your content, it's never bad to promote a little more. I think by default people share less and associations share less by default. So if you're thinking that like whether we should share or not, by default always do share. And like Bob was saying, you don't have to share the whole recording. Can be a snippet, can be a clip, right? And that way, the moment you post it, you'll get another window into your membership one more time to engage a few more people.
Yeah, and the other thing, we didn't talk about it, but a lot of the content that gets posted for year-round engagement also doesn't have to be available for free. You can
Yeah.
charge for that content, either for a session or access to recording for people that went to this session, or attending a webinar. I've seen this quite often, that webinars are, for example, like free or like $10 to attend, like because this is really high uh, value content that's being delivered for an association. But if you're not a member, it's like $20 to attend. Or if you want to access the library of recording of previous year, but you have to become a member to access a particular membership level to access content. So it's a great way to also drive a different level of membership that
Mm.
starts from, let me just dip my toe in and see what content is there. Okay, well, it's only like $60 a year for me to get access to the recording because I really want to watch this video, but then you get to see like, oh my God, look at all these amazing content. Like I should definitely go to the conference next year. At least that's how I make decisions these days.
So Bob, like on that note, so when we're engaging your community during a conference, I think there are two ways to engage. You can engage members with the content, or you can you can engage members like with the community, like person to person. So like in-person networking. Now, I think like content we talked about that. How do we create purpose content and drive your own engagement? What about the connections that are made like people to people in person, right? So say they connected like in the conference app or in some other way, exchange business cards. What works and what doesn't work in general to kind of like keep the connection going after?
Yeah, that's a $1 million question. And to some degree, I think it's impossible. It's just, you create the opportunity for people to meet each other at the conference. So it's all about like, how do you create the right environment for people to connect so that they do want to continue. But there's also like, I feel like there's very low-hanging fruit options to do that. So one example I think is webinars. Webinars are super easy to kind of run, and by bringing people that, for example, if you run a webinar, we talked about this, like if people went to a particular session and they were really engaged, then you can run just a Zoom. Maybe it doesn't have to be a webinar. It's just like a Zoom meeting for 30 minutes for those people to reconnect. That's a great way to kind of allow people that are comfortable. They met each other, they had conversation, they listened to a speaker, to continue that conversation post-event. That's one way to do that. The other way, I mean, a lot of associations kind of keep their member directory open, and that's great. You can go and find people when you want. And others have a community platform. That's great. So there's an ongoing engagement that happens. What used to be kind of the best practice is like, oh, leave the networking open so anyone can chat each other. Like that doesn't really work. What
Mm.
I've seen work best is creating these 1 hour a month networking session, almost like an exclusive invite that, oh, we only have like 25 spots, and uh, we're going to talk about the special topic of discussion is X, and you can actually come and chat with two experts that spoke at the conference, or members that are experts in specific topics. You kind of create these ask me anything type sessions, or specific one-on-ones, but it has to be, again, going back to that expiry date, it's like it has to be time bound. So the worst thing to do is like leave it open. The best thing to do is to have a very specific short time, but recurring. So if somebody missed
Mm.
it, okay, I can get it again next month. So there's another opportunity for me to go back and kind of engage. So that's another way I've seen sort of exclusive one-on-one networking opportunities to work really well. And a lot of associations also have like, offline groups, like meetups in each city. So a lot of our customers, their annual conference happens, but then they're actively, nurturing their local communities. And, usually if you've met someone at a conference and you do want to go meet the same people again, because they lived in your city. So it kind of allows these mini communities and micro communities to kind of foster and be nurtured on their own throughout the year. So lots of different ways that what happened at the conference can continue. And if anybody went to an expo booth, I mean, I'm sure they're going to get a call from one of those salespeople. So that conversation is definitely going to continue.
Yes, for sure. Right. All right. So I think like we are at 45 minutes already. So I'm going to like start taking audience questions now. Bruce, if you have any question, please interrupt me anytime. Okay. So
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So I think we already answered some of the top questions that we had, but I'm going to like pick a few that I think may be very key. So I'll paste this on chat. Yeah. So Sarah is asking how to recruit new members and get existing members to renew at work conferences and events. So Bob, for you.
I feel like Bruce is an expert at this,
Go ahead.
but
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bob.
But I can take a stab at it from my experience. Like I'm actually a member of 3-4 different associations and communities, and I kind of think about the main reason that I actually even learned about it is through other people. So kind of going back to the core questions, like how do I recruit new members? I think it's just empowering your existing members to do that work for you, because people are more likely to join association knowing that their colleagues and friends are having a good experience. So that word of mouth, I think, has a lot to do with it. How do you do that? Well, when everybody has a great experience, which again, year-round engagement kind of comes in play. If the conference happened and it's 6 months later and you're like, how do I get new members? And you haven't talked to your existing members, well, it's really hard to activate them. So again, this is how kind of ongoing engagement throughout the year can help with sort of recruitment. The other thing we talked about very quickly, but I do feel like it has a lot of power, is repurposing the content of the conference and then using it throughout the year for people that never attended, and then using it to drive registration. And I always think, and we mentioned this at the beginning, I think that the biggest KPI and the impact of a year-round engagement is better registration number for next year. And you were talking about, Bruce mentioned that it's really hard to measure the impact of engaged community. I actually think there is a way to do that, and very few associations measure it. It's the returned ratio of your attendees. A lot of associations, people have to go back to get their certificate, so that doesn't count, because like you have to go, otherwise you don't have a job. But for the ones that actually have a broader trade organization and it's an option for you to go, what I hear is just terrible retention numbers. Like I'm talking about like 30%, 40% retention. Like every year, 60% of the audience is new. And that kind of to me is like, what happened to the other 60%? Did they not have a good experience? So I feel like the best way to measure the power of an engaged community or year-round engagement is, can we increase the percentage of the attendees that returned last year? So that's one. And going back to Sarah's question about how do I recruit new members, the same way that the content can be used to increase that retention rate can actually be used to draw new members in, because they kind of get a sense of what they can get going to a conference. And the best way you can do that is by highlighting the people that attended, highlighting the sponsor that brought new topics and innovation at your conference, highlighting the content that was really popular. And again, all that stuff is done throughout the year. You can't do a drop date of, here's everything about our conference. You can watch like 55 different recordings, but you can do that like over time on LinkedIn, on your blogs, on your podcast. Lots and lots of low-hanging fruits to repurpose that content.
Okay, I'll take the next question from Alison Kellnan. Hi, Ali. Ali is a client of ours. Ali is asking, do you ever suggest a hybrid conference where attendees have the choice to attend in person or virtually? How does that work?
I feel like I've been talking a lot. Bruce, do you want to take this one?
Well, yeah, my experience is more anecdotal, and yours, Bob, is probably a little more boots on the ground. Yeah, I think it's varied for associations. I do know of one association that has continued its virtual conference now, what, 4 or 5 years after the COVID lockdown, and they get a good number of people that they don't run them simultaneously. They run them about a week apart. And it's been very successful. They get a lot of people still at the in-person. They get a lot of people at the virtual one a week later. And there are other associations that have found it just too clunky to do both. And I remember even like, an analogy that somebody used during the COVID lockdown is that if you think of a sporting event, the in-person production crew is a completely different production crew than the TV
Yes.
production crew.
Yeah.
And I think as associations, we kind of, and I know we got pushed into this during COVID and we had to figure it out real fast, was like, well, let's just do both. And let's be the in-person production crew and stick a camera in the back of the room, and now we'll say it's hybrid. And then the hybrid folks, the virtual folks, often felt left out of that equation. So either if there's not a way to do it right, I'm not sure there's because again, it's a different setup and a different structure,
Yeah.
and you do different, for that sporting event, you don't necessarily broadcast everything that's going on the playing field. Um, and so and I think again, it's looking at is the conference the goal, or is it a tactic? And I really like Bob's many good ideas for taking that, looking at the conference as just this wealth of content and expertise from faculty and member networking groups and sponsors and others. And how can you repurpose that year long? And there are just so many different ways to repurpose it with micro learning and podcasts and webinars and focus groups and social media posts and doing those in collaboration with faculty members and sponsors and others, um, and print articles on the website and the AI summaries. So maybe there's not a need to do a simultaneous virtual,
Yeah.
but just to take that content and find other ways. Members are looking for the content. They're not saying, I am looking for a conference.
Yeah, I agree with that as well. And I think like Ali, what we found, like one of our clients, they actually do like a live streaming using Member Launch, our platform. And unless you have like a very strong production crew who can actually live stream from the venue, like you have to outsource that completely. Like the association staff will typically not have the technology and means to actually do that. So you have to outsource that completely. And unless you have a very strong crew who can actually take care of that completely, I don't think there's much value in live streaming. In person is enough. And with another organization, I found that like they were actually doing hybrid for the longest time, and then like the amount of time and effort it was taking for them to manage both in like both simultaneously, the return on investment was not there. You will invest, people will feel good, it'll feel like a good value thing, but the return on investment in member engagement was not there. And to be honest, the people who were in the conference venue were more engaged than the people who were online. So like if that is the case, then why not just like cut the online streaming and then just do it like in person, And then also my advice to associations have been that like you can do a hybrid but in a different way. So maybe like do the like annual conference in person, but then have like multiple micro learning events that are online. That way you can actually keep engaging people throughout the entire year. Alrighty. So I'll take the next question from Joel Carson. I'll paste it here. So Joel is asking, how can you leverage technology to build lasting affinity groups? Feels like a question for me, but I'll let you take it first.
So I think let's go back. I mean, we're talking about an engaged community that lasts over time, right? That's basically what Joel is asking. Part of that, I feel like, again, I kind of go back. By the way, there's a really, really good book. I'm trying to find it here because it was in my notes. It's called Elevating Engagement by Amanda Lee Kaiser. I don't know if anyone has read that. And she talks about the science of engagement. And she has this sort of reverse fun. Oh my God, you have it. Yes, it's a really good book. Oh,
Bruce has
everybody
it too,
okay.
right there.
I really enjoyed reading it. Honestly, I feel like Amanda is kind of probably so busy with doing consulting work that like she. Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, there you go. We both have it. Yeah.
If for anyone on the call, and it's a really easy read, like really, really well written. But the concept, I think the main concept I loved about it, is kind of going back again. I want to make sure I answer Joel's question about like building long-lasting sort of communities. And the technology part, I think it's an enabler. It's not kind of like how do we use technology specifically, but and Amanda talks about like if you think about this like reverse funnel. Well, actually, that is the funnel. It looks like this reverses upside down. But the first stage of it is members observe. So they just look at what's happening in the association. What emails do you get? What activities are happening? And then the second stage is, they want to assess if this is for them, right? So they kind of attend some webinars. They might be going to one meetup. Maybe they attend your conference and they're kind of like just taking it all in. The next step is the participation. Like, are they actually participating? They ask a question, they join the activities, they go to the workshop, and then a few more at the end of it, like become contributors. Like you can't get everyone to contribute, but that's kind of like you get different levels of engagement. Like not everybody has the time, not everybody's as interested. Like people are at different levels, and then the sort of the cusp of that funnel is people that end up being leaders in your organization that you definitely want um, to give them sort of space to be able to engage the rest of the community, sort of your mavens and experts, and kind of thinking about that funnel and then bringing back to technology. It's like, okay, well, how do we use the technology that we have, our community platform, our website, our event app, our newsletters, to just create more visibility in terms of what's happening across the different programs and the contents and experts that people can get value. And then how do we make it simpler for people to participate, to take advantage, remove the barriers, remove the logins, in some cases actually to provide access to a broader. And then the next step is like, okay, how do we actually use technology to get people to create content? I mean, there's lots of different tools right now, especially with AI, auto creating videos from your members, sharing stories. Anyways, we can talk about this for hours. I know we're running out of time here, but I feel like talking about technology to create year-round member, we have to think about like what stage and who do we want to go after, and then there's tons of tools out there that are really powerful.
Okay, so I'll take a quick take at that because I think like we have done this a lot in general. So in order to like build lasting affinity groups like throughout the entire year, like again, like what I was saying earlier is that like you have the value. The value is like what do members want, and then you have the delivery mechanism, right? So how do you deliver that value to the member? So not all member will connect with the same delivery mechanism. So for example, like if you host like an in-person event, not all members will want to come to the in-person event. Some will love the in-person event. Some are maybe a little bit shy. They will like to see an online event, right? So like what we have seen is that like when you want to create lasting affinity groups, number one, that affinity group has to have a home that is online, right? So if it's on your member portal, if you do not have a member portal, like you have to have a member portal where members can log in and kind of like have a home, like for your association. But beyond the member portal, that affinity group has to have a place to belong, just like a room, right? So in a discussion group, if you create like a discussion group or something, a home for the affinity group to connect online, that's like number one, you have to have that. Then the second thing is that if you have that affinity group, you need to make sure that you're curating the experience during the year. So like you cannot expect that the affinity group people will voluntarily, organically come together and then talk, right? You have to create a session, say, hey, we're doing a working group to talk about this like initiative, talk about this, right? You create the event and let the affinity group come together and hold the discussion. And there is an opportunity here to find out like, does this affinity group like work better like offline, on, like discussion group only, or like at a webinar or in person? So different groups I have seen like work differently, and you have to find out like which one works like for which. And then again, like the number one thing is that the affinity group has to have a home that is online, that is available like on their own time, not on your time, that is available on their own time. So there someone is sitting like in their living room in the evening, they want to see, oh, I want to find out like what is my group doing. They go online, they find the group, and they see 3 more posts, and they can interact. So making it available on their own time. So these are my quick thoughts. Bob, anything to add? I see you nodding your head.
No, I think you kind of hit all the main points there, but I mean, there's so many different tactics, and every association is different. So The number one thing is know your audience, talk to them, fully understand how they want to engage, and then provide different mechanisms because everybody learns and wants to engage, differently. So I think that's really the tough part of creating year-round engagement is you have different people that want to engage in different ways. So it makes everybody's job a lot more difficult, but it will be more impactful than just having one way for everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, Bob, what would be your one key takeaway for the audience today? Is it this, or is there anything else? Any more key takeaway? Yeah.
I don't know if it's key takeaway. I think the core part of the whole conversation today was, we create all this engagement and content at the conference. Let's use it. Let's use it throughout the year. It's not that hard. And actually, with all the tools that have come out over the last couple of years, with all the AI tools, actually creating and repurposing this content has become even easier. So I think that's just hopefully that sort of inspires a few association rep. But also the other thing is get your boss to kind of create this organization-wide sort of, so you're not in a silo just doing it by yourself. I think this year-round engagement is best done when it's a team effort.
Got it. Yeah. Bruce, do you have any key takeaway?
Yeah, just to tag on the Bob's, and I think this idea of taking this wealth of knowledge and expertise from the conference, and so I think to do that strategically, and when you're assigning staff roles at the conference, to have the editor of the publication be looking for story ideas, have the social media person looking for different social media posts throughout the year, have someone on the education team, if not running sessions for that conference, be scouting out podcast and webinar ideas and talking to faculty about that. And definitely Bob's idea of looking at the most popular sessions and then looking for ways to repurpose those, and to look at all of these as, to look at the conference as not the goal, but a tactic, and then to look at all the different ways to use that content throughout the year. Because as Bob said, you've already got the content, faculty already have the material, the sponsors already have their expertise. Find ways to work with those folks and use that content year long for engagement.
That's wonderful. I think we got lots of golden nuggets from the session today. I learned a lot already. I was wondering what new ideas we will find that's going to be like a eye opener for me. I had many. So Bob, thank you so much for joining us today, and Bruce, thank you so much for co-hosting with me as well.
Thank you.
Yeah. So let's keep in touch. Let the discussion going online on social later on. Just like we were saying about the conferences, right? We'll create blogs and video clips from this podcast
We
itself.
We will do that because we have to live up to our words.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And thank you everyone for joining. We're going to wrap up now. So once again, we come to these webinars and podcasts and we learn so much from them, but nothing happens until you take action. So like I say at the end of every episode, every webinar that I do, that from all the ideas that you got today, find one actionable item that you can start working on immediately. Be it talking to your boss, be it sharing this session to your coworker, whatever one action will kind of help you move the needle. Do take that action within the next 1 week. If not, the excitement will go away. All right. So with that, we're going to wrap up today. I wish you all the best with your membership journey. Bye for now.